Hey guys, it's me, Alexander Jarvis from alexanderjarvis.com. This is going to be the second video about the e-commerce financial model for fundraising for startups. So in this video, what we're going to do is go through at a high level how I would approach actually filling in this model, since it's something I get asked all the time. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, holy fuck, Alex, slow down, there's so much more you're not explaining here, don't worry. We're actually going to go through each of the sheets line by line in additional videos. So this is gonna be like the high level, okay, what should I actually be doing? How should I be thinking about doing it? I haven't spent like an hour practicing for this thing, so I'm just gonna walk you through how I would kind of do it in my head, okay? There's no set way of doing it. There's lots of different ways you can approach doing it. What I'm going to teach you is the way I would approach doing it, so that you can continually see results as opposed to like spending a bunch of time filling it in, being like, I can't see the outcome and maybe giving up, okay? The key thing to understand is, yes, there's a lot you can potentially fill in here. By the way, this is also not one of my largest models. This is one of my smaller ones. But if you just put in the work, you'll get the results for it. I've done all the thinking for you. All you need to do is fill in your assumptions here. And the great thing is you can just start with some ghetto approximate ballpark ones. And as you go through it, you can refine it. Like you can go Googling at what your click-through rates or something might be if you don't know already, and improve the accuracy of it over time. But the end result where you want to be is something that you can share with investors, talk them through it, and actually understand what's happening here, because your numbers are going to be wrong, right? Let's face it. And investors know that. And what's important is that you understand the thinking behind your assumptions, right? And you can explain them, because that's all investors are looking for, is that you've got confidence and a thesis around what's going to happen, okay? So don't get too stressed out about this. You'll get better in time. And if you don't understand things like what CTRs and CACs and all these acronyms mean, that's cool, but you got to learn, okay? I never know any of this stuff at a certain point of time. I've just taught myself mainly just by Googling and occasionally talking to people, right? So you can do it if I can do it. It is effort, but you'll see a lot of results. And you'll find you can start having conversations with people at an entirely new level and be thinking about your business in a lot more detail. So metrics, numbers, understand these things is incredibly powerful for your business, because at the end of the day, you get customers, they give you money, and those ratios kind of need to work out. And if you're not tracking them and understanding them properly, you're going to find yourself running out of money. And so whilst you may not want to quit, you'll be forced to because you run out of cash. Okay. So the first thing that I want you to do is to read this blog, which I wrote, called How to Fill in a Financial Model Template. And a lot of what I'm going to teach you is actually written out and spelled out in a lot of anal detail out of me. So really go read this whole thing, okay? The whole thing properly, okay? And internalize the key learnings. You're going to do stuff like getting a pen and paper and making this thing as a ghetto example for a SaaS company that I made. And figure out what you want the model to actually end up doing. So don't just bust out a model like mine and see what it tells you. What you want to do is massage the model to create the outcome you want. Of course, if it's giving you things that, you know, make your business unviable, you need to learn from that, and maybe actually your business has problems. But assuming it's all working out right, you want to set yourself targets. Like, what are you going to be doing at the end of the first forecast year in this model, in year 2, and year 3? Starting from the top and then going all the way down the bottom, including your ratios. As if you understand what you're looking for, when you're going through the assumptions, you can say, well, I want to target my CAC to be $42. Well, there's a number of ways that you can be doing that. So you can, if it's too high, say it's 60, well, you can increase, say, your organic or your email marketing, social marketing, which will hopefully bring that down by effectively getting free customers. That's one lever. Other ones can be decreasing the cost of your CPCs, or increasing your conversion rates from traffic to registration, or from registration into actually purchasing. So there's lots of little things that you'll learn and get a lot more insight into your business if you actually put in the work. Now, I make these models for you to learn about your business, not just to get something to give to investors. So if you put in the time, you'll get the result out of it. And typically what everyone says was like, fuck me, Alex, it was a lot of work to do, but do you know what? I can think about my business in entirely new ways. It was really instructional for me to actually understand my business better and understand the levers and the drivers that I have to play with. And so that's the power of using my models, okay? And since you've already got it, I don't need to sell to you. I'm just telling you this is the benefit you can get from it. So read this whole thing. It's going to teach you a bunch of stuff to think about and more about how to think for yourself and logic, and then how to actually approach, doing the model. So pick a section and do it, then calibrate it. Learn the drivers of your business, right? How to really be thinking about it. Don't be in denial, right? So this will be very valuable to read, but regardless, we're going to go through the model. So let's just have a quick go through. So we got the cover, we've got the intro. You've watched the last video and I went through this in a high level. First thing you'll be doing is going into the formatting sheet and setting what your dates. You can see I built this model a long time ago. So let's say, I don't know, you're starting out in 2021, which hopefully is going to be a better freaking year, right? And let's say it's April. You just change the year, oopsies, to 2021. And the model is going to, the forecasting is going to start in April, forecast. And then your first month of actuals are going to be in January, okay? And so you're going to have January, February, March for your actuals, and then April will be your first forecast date. And so then you're going to put in what your year end, because I'm going to have a difference between your profit and loss, which is sort of like bullshit accounting thing, and your cash flow, so you can actually understand when things are coming in and out. So you're going to pay your bonuses typically every year. Well, what month is that? That's the date the cash is actually coming out of your bank account, which you care about, right? If you've got a tax rate, pretty much everyone does, say 12% in Ireland, whatever it is, state plus federal in America, just whack that in. I'm just going to assume that using US dollars, otherwise you need to get my plugin to change the currency to one of these other ones. So that's the first thing that you're going to do. Just everyone needs to do it, okay? And so we can see here January to April. So you're going to want to fill in January, February, March in your actuals, and automatically the model is going to start in April, right? Which was the forecast date here, right? So the first thing I would do is the boring bit, because you need to do it. So ungroup all this, and all these yellow boxes you need to fill in. You don't have to necessarily fill in all of them, but you want to get to a point actually where ideally you are tracking these numbers. So if you absolutely don't know certain of them, you can group them together or something and hack your way through. Your actuals are not super important, but if you have them, put them in, okay? Investors will actually check these. So you're going to have your gross orders, net revenues, discounts and vouchers. You're basically going to be running down all the way through your P&L, all the costs. So stick these in: warehouse costs, delivery costs, all these things. Note there are negatives, right? There's little notes to say it's a negative value. And so fill all this stuff in, okay? So just get it done. Again, like if you're like, oh God, Alex, I don't know if I'm committed to this yet, put them in broadly, mainly deal with the most important numbers, and then you can come back and improve it. But start seeing what this can do for you and the value it's giving, and you can build up that commitment to make sure every single number is exactly perfect. Because I don't want you to go, send an email to your CFO for all these numbers and then look at it and go, holy crap, this is too much for me to deal with. But ideally, if you're on top of your numbers, fill in all the other boxes for those months that you have. Obviously, if the months change, you can change these dates. So 1 month goes by, this is going to be January, March, April, this is going to be May. So you just change the month to May. That's the first there. So January, May, okay? Because I made this model a while ago, I'm going to keep the dates as they work so they'll actually make sense. So that's the thing. First, fill in the P&L actual sheet. All those numbers, so they're filled in, okay? Now, just because there's very little to do, just get it out of the way with. There's not too much thinking involved, really. Let's open up just to make sure you see, but there's very few numbers, okay? So put in what the typical percentage-wise total discounts and vouchers you're going to have, your cancellation rates, return rates, if you have them. Obviously, most people do. If you have import costs, if you don't, just set it to 0. Then you don't care about it anymore. Bad debt, credit card fraud, allowance for bad goods. My numbers are pretty, I'd say, standard, so you can just go with them to start if you want, but if you know what they are, just put in the assumptions. Easy, okay? When you plan on fundraising, how much you plan on fundraising, whack in that in the fundraise amounts, so say 1.2 mil, and then, I don't know, at some point in like 13 months time, you're going to raise 6 mil, like your Series A. And then for your LTV, right, calculations, you can just whack in numbers if you want to. But we're going to be just taking averages based on your calculations. But if you want to override those, you can. Okay. So that's easy peasy. It's nothing to do in the PL combined. Totally forget about the PL for deck. If you want, you can even delete the sheet. Depreciation tax, unless you know what you're doing, just ignore it. I mean, this is how we do invest in banking, but most companies don't make lots of profit, so who cares about the tax you're paying and all that jazz. This is value add stuff, and to be honest, you can just leave this sheet as it is. If you're a CFO type and you understand this stuff probably better than me, feel free. This is literally how we do it in banking, and so if you are making loads of money and you have net operating losses that you want to write off in the past, you can do that, but ignore this sheet to starting out. Now, the first thing I would do is probably start generating revenue. So head into, say, the SKU sheet, start keeping units, right? Just ungroup everything so you can see it. Go to the top. Let me see what we have. Okay, first, how many SKUs you have. Like if you're running a tiny little store and you have like 5 SKUs which sell really well, cool. You're just going to set it at 5, right? And you can delete all this stuff and you just always have 5 products. You see 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. However, if you're running a fast fashion business, these numbers are going to look more like that. And I've designed this to be more for like a fast fashion type business. So lots of new SKUs, and then every whatever end of season, you're going to start removing SKUs. And so, we roll up the number of SKUs that we're going to have. If you're not exactly sure, just put in some numbers. You can prove them again later. Now, I try to use averages or avatars for everything. In SaaS, it's like basic, premium, pro. E-commerce, you've got 3 categories of shoes types, right? What you want to think about is in terms of profitability, costs, wherever makes sense for you. You've got 3 main buckets. If you only have one, okay, fine, just leave set all the other details to 0. But typically, you can always fit everything into 3. If you've got Alex below got 4, look, I know that there's always a way of making it 3 because I've had calls about these things. So we're going to create averages for everything. So as a percentage of your sales, what is, and you can change the titles here, right? Just by typing it in. What percentage is shoes? 30%. What's apparel? 50%. Therefore, 1 minus here is going to equal the percentage that is accessories because it has to add up to 100. Now, how much on average are you selling your shoes, your apparel, or accessories? $90, $60, $40? This is pretty simple. And you can just get a feel as your weighted average, approximately right, just a sense check. And I'm sure if you're running e-commerce, you're going to track that kind of thing. And then repeat purchases. So I make a difference between new and repeat because maybe they trust you. Therefore, their average basket size is going to be more because they buy more. What percentage is it different? So maybe people buy more shoes on the second purchase or whatever it is. So what is the average sale price? Same thing, but maybe this is spending more money. Now we're going to whack in how much does it cost you. So, you sell something for $10, you get it from China for 3. Well, the cost for the basis for that is going to be $3. Again, you should know what this stuff means. If you don't, you're in a little bit of trouble. So again, then is the same thing on the basis on the repeat customers. What's that going to be for the cost basis? Now, there's obviously a difference between outright and consignment. See outright section, and then we have consignment section down here. Obviously, outright means you just buy it. Consignment, you have a lot more in marketplaces, and you build more trust with people. Basically means they just send the stock over to you, and you hold it, and when you sell it, you give them the money. There typically comes some strings attached with that on your cost basis and the leverage that you have with people, but again, you should understand this stuff. So what is the cost basis for these? And that's that sheet done. And then you can have a look just to make sure you see how things are evolving over time, if you're, for example, changing things, but done. Okay, now the next thing to do is the cohort build. Just because you're going to want to have a look at this with your marketing. All right, and I'll explain why in a second. So we can see here, go all the way down, and we'll get to assumptions. So consignment as a percentage of your COGS, what is that? All right, if you're doing everything outright, you don't really care about this. So how many items per order you have? So are people buying 1.5 pairs of shoes? Of course they don't. It means on average, you're getting 1.5 because maybe some people are buying 2, some people are buying 1. So what is the typical items per order that you're getting in? So 1.5, 1.7, 10, whoever it is. But maybe it's like me because I shop a lot on Amazon. Next thing, we're going to have the penetration curve, which I'll probably explain better in the next video. But basically, once people have an intention to purchase, they'll register on your site, but they may not buy anything for a while, but you know they're probably going to do that. So you're going to have conversion rate over time. So on this basis, it's going to take you 9 months before everyone to buy. If everyone just buys in the first month, you just set it to 100 and you can delete this and everyone's going to buy in the first month. Okay, but assuming there's going to be, so you're going to get people from, acquire them in 1 month, and that cohort, and over time they're going to become hopefully customers. So set what that is. All right, and needs to end up, the final number is 100. So when 100% is, that's when it happens. So half in the first month, then another 5, then another 15, or whatever it is over time. And then, okay, so I make a difference between paid and earned customers, because you might say, look, people who come through recommendations, word of mouth, etc., they're probably more likely to buy since Jane liked it, right? So therefore, your conversion rates from registrations to paid could be higher. Whereas you say, like, if we're just buying them from Google, they don't know us, they don't have no relationship with us, therefore the conversion rate could be lower. And so you can play with that, which is more of a pro thing, to make different assumptions. Or if you don't really understand enough, set them at the same, just leave it like that. Now, I actually had someone reach out the other week, so I know I need to explain this section properly. So once you get people, they're not going to stay forever, and only some people are going to be purchasing again. So what percentage of your cohort for 1 month? So if you get people in January, okay, they're going to become customers over time, and only a certain percentage of them every month is going to buy. So we're saying 14% of the people, 120 that we get in here, which is something like 20 people, are going to purchase pretty much every single month, okay? But those customers are also going to disappear, so we're going to have a churn rate. So we're going to set how long on average you're going to keep those customers for, which I'm saying here, they'll stick around for 4 years, which means that 2.1% of your customers from January are going to disappear. So something like 2 and a bit will disappear every single month. And so you can increase that at the start because you say, well, maybe get the flaky ones and people are better towards the end, however you like, okay? So there's not that many assumptions you need to fill in, and then there's lots of calculations. So that's relatively quickly to do. If you want, you can just leave it as it is. Maybe just set this to 0 if you're not doing consignment. Order rate or items per order, you should kind of know. And just move on. You can come back to it if you like, okay? So that is those 2 blue sheets, SQ and cohort build. And these are going to be important for you to be able to generate revenue. So then you can look into your KPI sheet and look at the top line here and be like, oh, orders, revenue, do these kind of look like they make sense? And then forget about all this shit. Start at the top and work your way down. My order's about right. 10,000-ish orders first year, 70,000, 210,000. It's not perfect, but it's kind of in the ballpark. And then, that's cool. But in order to generate these, we're going to have to generate traffic. So what we're going to do is, first thing I would do is probably go in the marketing sheet. We're just going to make sure everything's ungrouped. This I'm not going to talk about. Maybe I'll mention in another video. This is a pro thing. So we're going to have, the way it works is we're going to generate traffic, and then a percentage of those people are going to register on your site, give you your email. Then a percentage of those people are going to become customers. Okay, so you understand the funnel? Traffic, register on the site, customer. All right, that's the way the model is going to work. Okay, and then those customers disappear, those people buy again, repeat purchases. So the marketing sheet here is going to convert your traffic into registrations. Your cohort build is turning those registrations into customers. So these blog and social, email, paid, and organic are traffic generating sheets. The marketing sheet is the one that turns them into registered users. Okay, so once you've generated traffic, what percentage of those will register, give you your email? Okay, with an intention to potentially be a customer. So it's 9%, 10%, 50%, and you can have different ones per different channel. Okay, my numbers are relatively reasonable. I think I checked them against some sort of benchmarking thing. Obviously, it's your model now. You need to put your numbers in, but my numbers I think are half decent. And as you can see here, our implied conversion rates from traffic, registration paid, is in the region of like 1.4, 2.7, 1.5, which I think for e-commerce, again, is relatively reasonable. Again, you need to know what your conversion rates are, but you can see the implied rates and the basis of these coming from the cohort build sheet, right? Which is these conversion rates, 16, 18%. So when you're filling with things, you can look at the implied conversion rates to make sure that they're making sense. So set what you think the rates are. You don't need to, if you don't want to deal with adjusted conversion rates, you can just change by percentage, just delete them, right? Just to start out, or you just leave them if you want, and then come back and do that later. Okay, whack in what these conversion rates are. That's important, and it's a relatively easy win. You should have an idea of the ones that you're doing. If you're not doing channels, doesn't matter. Set them to 0, whatever. Now, typically for most people, paid channels can be the most important, but the organic is really simple, so just do it. So look at your Google Analytics. How many people are you getting per month already? All right, organic visitors. So if you're doing 33 per day, on a monthly basis, that's about 1,000 a month. What do you think it's kind of typically growing? Whack in the growth rate, and you can see that this grows over time. Look at your annuals, 100, 700, 1.5 million people. Are these reasonable? That's as simple as you can possibly get in my model, okay? Now, we're going to spend money on channels, which hopefully you already are doing now, so you understand this stuff. So we're going to have you can change the titles to whatever you want. I put in 6 boxes, so it could be Bing, Quora, LinkedIn, display, retargeting, whatever it is you want that you're doing, okay? And again, this is going to be important for you to explain to investors because your marketing is how you're going to grow. So whack in what your budget is. So I would thinking, okay, I'm raising $1 million. I'm spending 30% of this over 18 months, whatever, call it a year. Therefore, I'm going to spend $300,000 over 12 months. Am I going to spend most consistently, or am I going to ramp it up over time? So maybe we start with 5, then it goes 10, then it goes 20, and it stays at 20 for the rest of the year. I don't know. That's up to you to decide, okay? But whack in some numbers. You can see we're just going to start with SEM here. At some point, we're going to do display ads, and then we're going to add Facebook, and then we're going to add, budget towards doing affiliate marketing, and then we'll see our total budget. By the way, if you see these things hashed out, it's just because I try to keep the columns narrow so that you can see more of it. But if you want you to zoom in, and the numbers will become evident unless the numbers are huge, in which case just double tap or widen it, okay? And then you can see the numbers. But it's not a problem with the model, it's just me trying to keep the cells together so that you can get a better overview of what's happening. Okay. So first thing, how much money are you spending? And then how much are the CPCs? So when you divide your spend divided by your CPC, that's going to generate your traffic. So if we have 60 cents for a click on your Google SEM, and we spend $10,000, then we're going to get 16,667 visits to our site, who then hopefully will register, and then who will hopefully become customers. Okay, but again, this is pretty simple once you understand how it works. Apply your budget, put in your CPCs, which again can change over time. If you don't like things, you can just go across, press Control R or copy and paste across. They're gone. Press Control Z to put them back to what was there before. And we generate traffic. You're looking at charts to see what's happening. Does this kind of make sense? Like, okay, cool, organics. Is that too high? Maybe I need to change that. So, all right. Paid is typically the main growth engine for a lot of people. Organics is like, yeah, free traffic, nice, because you do SEO or whatever. Now, realistically speaking, email, blog, and social, they're about as nerdy as I can possibly make them, which is to create enough room for you to spin bullshit lies about how it's actually going to work, okay? So I would always start out with my engine of growth typically being paid unless you really have a plan or you're David Dobrik and you're on TikTok and all that shit. So you get it for free with this perfume. Anyway, I would do email, blog, and social stuff last by looking at what your core paid acquisition channel is, because all those other activities, all they basically do is say if it's 10 and you get a 20% benefit from these other activities, brings it down to 8. All right. So when you're looking, oh, my revenue's not high enough, so what can I do? Well, there's a lot of levers. One of them can be decreasing your acquisition costs so you get more customers, maybe at a higher conversion rate. So decreasing your CPCs, etc., can help you generate more customers. But again, these need to make sense, because when you show investors, or actually just for yourself, like, don't live in la la land. These need to be reality, right? But these activities are just going to bring down what your paid channel is. So if you're doing lots of email stuff, put in what your email database is. If you're doing email campaigns optimized, we have more opportunities for creating traffic to the site. You have conversion rates and all this shit. And it's really nerdy. There's no need really to have all this stuff because it's pretty academic, especially if you don't know. But if you do know and you want to have good arguments for investors, this is going to give you the ammunition for it. But realistically, as a business owner, I really focus on what my main engine of growth is, and just everything else hopefully helps out. So like if it was 10, and then I'm hoping this other stuff will decrease it by 20%. For my personal planning, I would pretend it's 10% and all the other stuff is gravy. It's like upside, but I would set my forecast based on a more pessimistic scenario. So I'm going to cover all this stuff again in like other videos. I'm just saying I would just fill this in. Again, my number, I tried getting research reports and stuff, benchmarking, so my numbers are pretty decent. So the only thing you could really change is, say, for example, how big your database. So say you have 20,000 people or something, whack that in, you can move on, come back to it later. Blogging social basically means you're going to do some blogging, people are going to find you, or you're going to do like PR and get featured in beauty magazines or TechCrunch or whatever the fuck it is you're doing. So how many times are you going to be featured in things? How much traffic do you get from these? Social media activities and stuff. In some ways, this can be done more complicated, but again, like, look how many lines there are. I mean, do you really want to do more? So I would, again, probably just leave them as they are, because my numbers are pretty decent, unless you know better. But just change things like, you know, how many social media followers you have, and then move the fuck on, come back to it again later. You see, I'm trying to make this iterative instead of trying to do everything perfect, because I had this one client who was like, hey Alex, yeah, so like I'm going to be paid 150, everyone gets 40% bonuses. I'm like, Jim, you need $5 million. He's like, fuck. Okay, scrap that. Everyone's getting paid 40K, no bonuses, no nothing, but he spent a bunch of time doing these stupid numbers, wasted, because you want to do the model once perfectly through. Again, what I'm saying is just do it a little bit okay, ballpark reasonable, and then keep improving it, okay? Because at the end of the day, like if all the sheets are done like 50% okay, and then an investor asks, well, firstly, the model's gonna look fucking awesome because I built it, which you can or can tell them if you want, whatever, I don't care. But at least it's there, right? Ready just in case. And then you're going to have diminishing returns over time as you keep making it more and more accurate. But you have that opportunity to kind of deep dive into something over time. So I would whack all these things. Yellow sheet's done, blue sheet's done, all right, roughly. Again, I would keep on going back to KPI sheets and looking at high levels, orders, revenues. These kind of make sense. And then once we're doing expenses, we'll start looking at other lines, okay? But just broad picture, are these kind of making sense? Look at margins or ratios, whatever. Do things kind of look like they make sense, or is anything really stupid? Like if you're already doing $1 million a year and the model's saying that you're going to forecast to do 20K, you did something wrong, okay? Duh. All right. Now, the next thing I would do, a bit of a ball ache, but it's actually the most important sheet for costs, right? People, other than marketing costs, obviously. So I'm going to ungroup this so you can see everything in here, okay? So we'll say here, for example, I'll ungroup this, okay? So basically I put in enough room, which I think is reasonable enough for like moderately sized company, but just in case you're huge, you can add rows. And by the way, like if you want to add stuff, you can do it. The way I've done the sum formulas, it's going to add in whatever. So you can add stuff in here if you want, but don't be cavalier in a lot of other places in the model. Change things if you know what you're doing, okay? But that's one place. If you got 100 stuff, just whack more in, okay? Just make sure you drag the formulas down or whatever. Let's just group this up. So first thing, easy. Payroll, taxes, benefits. It's one number applied to everyone. It's an average. If it doesn't work out perfectly because for some reason the chosen one, the CEO, actually has a lot more, just increase the salary or something. But I purposely just picked one number for everything because there's not much to think about. And frankly, no one really gives a shit about asking about what tax rates and whatever, right? So just keep it simple. Whack that in. And then start with the people who are on your team. So you can delete all this shit, right? Delete. And then type in, so I'm the CEO, Alexander Jarvis. And then we have Mary, and then Susan, whatever. I do the full names, okay? Titles, whatever. She's the like chief sales officer, whatever it is, okay? Put in who you have, okay? Put in the date you hire them. If you fire them, you can add in here, but I'm pretty sure most people are not really going to use this. It's just there just in case people want it. Put in salary rates, how much you're getting paid. If you pay bonuses, most people probably not, at least earlier stage. Now there is an option to add a new salary. I would just delete it for now. But if you know on a certain date, say Series A, you promise to increase everyone's salaries by 30%, cool, then you can do that, okay? So the sections that we have is G&A, General Administration, R&D, Research and Development, Sales and Marketing, Buying, Production, and then Fulfillment, okay? So if you have head people, whack them in. That's the first thing you're going to do. Now, what you want to be aware of is in this expense calcs, I've created automations for the minions. So for certain people whose names I can't remember, we're going to automate the calculations for some of these people. So for example, photographers or something. So warehouse staff, your customer care people, your production people, these can be automatically calculated. So if you're scaling up and suddenly you're going to do 1 million SKUs, you're going to need a lot of photographers and assistants and stuff. That basically enables you to scale up or down depending on those key variables. But if you know that you have a hiring plan so that once you've done your round, you're going to add in developers, then you're going to add in when you're going to hire them. So if you're hiring Jim, where are we, R&D, so your CTO is going to be coming in the 1st of April 2020, well, you're not going to see any costs here until he actually joins you. So put in what the general hiring plan is approximately so that you have an idea of those costs. And then you can look again at the KPI sheet, get an idea of these numbers, starting to look approximately, are you losing approximately the right amount of money? And then at the bottom of the sheet, I've made this as simple as possible for you to do. We're going to put an average costs for people because no one cares about how much you're spending on pencils and shit like that. So put in the average cost, $80 per month for G&A, I don't know, $100 for sales and marketing people because they're doing whatever. Again, you can add an increased date once you have money to start doing more stuff, more dinners or whatever. Onboarding costs when you hire people is a one-off event, which is why it's not consistent like this one. It's spotty. Whenever you hire people, what is the cost? Laptops, desks, and all that crap, right? Put in the average cost. You can just use mine if you want, and then improve it again if you do travel, which right now no one's doing. Fuck my life. Whack that in again. Put in ballparks. You can get more anal if you want, especially if the costs are too high or too low, depending on what you look in the KPI sheets again. And you have other costs, incorporation, whatever. The earlier stage you are where money matters, the more anal you're going to be with these numbers. But again, you can improve them over time. Like, oh, I want to add in collateral. If you want, you can change the titles, but just bear in mind I use functions to look for the titles to then aggregate the costs. So you'll need to change the titles if you want to add in new lines or something. So in principle, this is very quick to do, especially if you've got a clear idea about it. But you basically need to go through your hiring sheet, who I have, what's my hiring plan, when I'm going to hire them, and then we're going to deal with the automation. So that's what we'll do next, okay? So let's just open this all up so we can see everything. So we're going to scroll down until we see where the assumptions are. Okay, so the first thing we're going to whack in, do you have any other warehouse costs? Yes, no, maybe it's like an optional magic button for you. When are you getting warehouses, right? Maybe you need multiple warehouses. So that'll be based on your orders. What is the cost for your initial warehouse? What's the cost for every additional warehouse? If you only have one or using a basement, you set these to 0 because you don't care. So they'll have warehousing. If you're doing like an FBA or something, this will be different. I'm assuming you're doing everything yourself. How many orders per head can they manage? The time to actually do per order, which gets you general costs. And we're dealing with your delivery costs. How much does that be costing? What if you're doing free shipping? Like for everyone, that would be 100%, not 70%. Again, you think in terms of averages. If you want to do more calculated things, you do ground, second day, overnight, and you have numbers about history of this, you can make this more complicated. Shipping to different countries, there's 4 here, and then allocate them to whatever to get your average shipping cost for people. And this should be in line with what you've been seeing so far. Obviously, you can improve it over time if you want, or maybe increase it, whatever. Return costs, like how do you deal with that? Is there free returns? Customer care, how many people, how long do you service them? What percentage of people need care every day? How many hours do they actually work? How do payments work? Are you doing this credit card? Are you doing PayPal, bank transfers, payment delivery, which is applicable in Asia? That's a thing. No, because we had to deal with it. And we have server costs and stuff. This is how a startup I invested in did it, so I stole it from them. Obviously, like if this is really important for you, like I don't know, you're running an app and you've lots of images and videos and your service costs are madness, this will become a thing and maybe you want to make it more advanced. So long as this server number here equals whatever it is, because you change all the stuff, that's fine. And if email is a big thing because you have like millions and millions of people, maybe you want to look into this in more detail. Again, this is literally how a startup who's raised maybe 50 million or something now did it. And they got funded with a ghetto version of this model, by the way. So whatever I have here, I can tell you is actually fundable because I funded them myself. Now you have photo shooting. Okay, if you're doing lots of SKUs, maybe this become a thing, in which case you're either doing outsourced or going to be insourcing it. Maybe you outsource at the start, insource it over time, and you just change the drop down menu between those two. So maybe you're going to pay the guy like a fixed fee for it. Maybe you're going to do it yourself. So how many SKUs are you going to be doing every month? Do you need to have assistants, models, and all that kind of stuff? Again, we'll go through this, but whack on those numbers because that's basically the only other really big cost. So now we've gone through the yellow ones, the blue ones, and the green ones. You're actually kind of done. What you need to do now is make sure everything actually makes sense, which is kind of the biggest pain in the ass. But like if you've, I know there's work involved, but you see like we've gone through this relatively quickly. If you do that, you can start looking at the KPI sheet and be like, okay, that's kind of like all my numbers. Do they make sense? And so actually, shit, I'm already profitable. Why am I losing money? Well, figure out where the costs are going, or maybe revenue is too low, and then investigate that area. So if you're not making enough revenue, are your conversion rates right? Go through maybe the marketing sheets. So the conversion rates from like registration to paid, right? Did you mess it up? Is it 1% instead of 10%? So you can start investigating things and improving them. So be looking at numbers going, where are things going wrong? Cost structure. Holy shit, why am I spending so much money on R&D when we actually don't even do it? We have a Spotify website. Whoa, shit. Maybe I didn't delete something. I don't know. Look at average order value, CPO, CACs. Are things making sense? Holy crap, why is my cost per order so high? Oh, I did something wrong with like return policies or whatever it is going on. But investigate and isolate, figure out how to improve those numbers continually, okay? That's where you're going to end up spending your time because we've done most of the work, okay? And so once you're done, you can play with the source and use sheet, which we'll cover again, obviously, and see how your money is going to be allocated in different buckets according to Mary Meckos, whatever radar charts and things to see the allocations make sense. Maybe, I don't know, there's some formulas, assumptions that you want to be checking in your P&L actual and forecast to make sure they're right, but generally, like, your actuals, right? So you can be playing really with your costs and with your revenues and conversion rates to make sure that you triangulate to the outcome that you're looking for. That's the important thing. Once you've done that and you're like, you know what, I'm pretty happy with my numbers, my KPIs kind of make sense. How my application of funds, pretty good. What you want to do is understand why your numbers are what your numbers are. Just don't like make it and expect a question like, what will your revenue be in year 3? You want to get to the point where you say, well, look, here are the levers in our business. Of course, there's some seasonality and blah, blah, right? But if we're able to successfully launch this new brand, which has an higher ARPA or so whatever, item cost, we'll be able to increase our revenue more substantially. Since we haven't done that yet, we're not sure. But based on current expectations, using our current product lines, assuming all our assumptions across the 3 categories of products we sell makes sense, we think that we'll be in the ballpark of 1.2 million by the end of the year on a gross basis, not on a net basis, which obviously makes deductions of whatever. So I'm just making up a bunch of bullshit right now, but you should know enough to be able to do that. Okay. And then when you have meetings with investors and they ask you questions, they'll be like, holy fuck, Mary is like on top of everything. She knows her business, she understands how it works, and it builds confidence because investors know your numbers are bullshit unless you're like really late stage. So what you want to show is communicate this confidence that you know your numbers, and investors love founders who know the numbers. If you're not fundraising and you got this model for yourself, good for you. Take this as an exercise for you to understand your business better and the levers that you can do to increase your revenue or to decrease your costs and increase profitability, or maybe reinvest profitability to be able to grow faster. Thinking about retention rates as being a key driver of your business, and repeat rates, and increasing the average items per basket and order rates, etc. It is work, but this is actually helping you understand your business, metrics, and all sorts of things. So put in the time and you'll see a result out of it. Hopefully I've communicated that to you. So in the next video, what we're going to be going to go through is the P&L forecast combined, P&L for deck, and then depreciation tax. So basically kind of the dark blue ones. So people who are anal about colors will hate the fact that's probably like navy or something, but anyway. So we're going to go through these in detail, and then we'll be going through the other sheets over time. So there we go. See you up in the next video. Bye.